Gone Home, Stanley Parable. Gone Home, the Stanley Parable. Two games that define an emerging genre. As indie games that begin to grow and mature, we seem to be gathering a genre of games that by their own conceits aren't games. There aren't lost conditions, there aren't boss battles, simply you experience a world. What do you call these games? Interactive fiction? Virtual art house? Any way you slice it, these are games devoid of standard gameplay mechanics that invite you into their stories. These are video games for book nerds, and frankly, I dig the shit out of it. Now, a warning. I'm going to spoil the shit out of Gone Home. If you haven't played it and think you might play it, I suggest stopping the video now. It's a short game, this video will always be here. That said, I want to address what would otherwise be an elephant in the room. So let's get out of the way. Gone Home's major storyline is about a gay teenage girl. None of those words describe me. I'm going to be on the level here, and I'm going to get into this stronger as the video progresses. I came to Gone Home wanting to enjoy the game. Here's the thing. I didn't know the game's major story arc before going in, but even if I had beforehand, well, this is the type of story that needs to be told. Life experiences that are not your own are hugely important. This is a selling point. This is a damned good thing. As well as face it, your target audience, gamers who play for story, are the perfect people for this kind of story they are trying to tell. This is a game about someone who feels like a social reject because of the person she is. There's a thin line between punks and nerds, a line the game itself stares at long ways, and the social dysphoria the game attempts to cover is hugely important and interesting. That said, I do feel as if the game uses what should be a socially important and dynamic feature as a crux on what to me isn't a fun game. I can see what people might love about Gone Home, and it might be more important to you if it does speak directly to you. I might just be a better target for the Stanley Parable, as the game focuses on a white man in a tedious job who suffers from ennui. Fucking guilty. Still, I hope you take that as what it is. Criticism of a game I don't like, but fucking want to like. The most aggravating experience to me is when something comes so close to being good and just misses the mark. A failure can be written off. I cannot write off Gone Home. It's not bad, but it sure is flawed in my mind. Gone Home is a game that's been sitting around on my wish list for a while. Several people whom I follow, whose opinions I give strong credence to, are huge fans of this game. Frankly, if Chip Cheesem and Voigtberger told me they loved Ride to Hell, it'd be on my wish list. If somehow either of you do end up listening to my stupid videos, by the way, Chip and Voigtberger, I'm good without the troll. Thanks. Don't make that recommendation to me. Anything along those lines. When it came up on the Steam Summer Sale for $5, there wasn't a question in my mind. This game was being picked up. So, one long afternoon, I sat down and played it beginning to end. Spent several hours and an awful lot of digging and messing around with it, so I definitely got my money's worth. Yet the whole time I played, I kept feeling like the game was flat. Something I couldn't put my finger on was missing, and the longer I played, the stronger the feeling came to me. The next day, I came back and replayed a few endings of the Stanley Parable. Nothing major, just poked about, but it still felt fresh. I still was enjoying the game on replay, grinning ear to ear as the irreverent narrator filled my ear space. And I couldn't help but think, what was it that the Stanley Parable got right that Gone Home didn't? We'll start with something far less objective, gameplay mechanics. The Stanley Parable fucking nails this one on the head. Knocks it out of the park, goes the extra mile, makes out with your girlfriend, stares you in the eye saying you're next, etc, etc. Even when you are not in control of the game, you feel like you're in control of the game. You will always feel like you have the choice about where to go next, what you explore. The narrator acts as a sort of Skinner box that drives and compels you to go out and find new things. It begs you to explore. With Gone Home, well, it's a bit different, isn't it? A lot of the gameplay boils down to sifting through garbage trying to find keys. Usually, literal fucking keys. I thought we left key hunting gameplay mechanics in the 90s. Sure, games today gate progression, often today by giving you tools to bypass the next progression point. But we're talking literal keys that halt your progression. I'm down with the fact that Katie, the protagonist, would have no reason to go ripping off wall panels. If not for her sister's diagram, but if this were Cinema Sins, the ticker would have just pinged. It wouldn't hurt if there were more to it, but this is literally the only gameplay mechanic the game offers you. You're on a virtual clue hunt to find the next MacGuffin. Fuck, there's an entire wing of the house you could ignore if you were solely looking to beat the game. Granted, beating it isn't the point of the game, but if an entire wing of a 4-wing house is pointless, you've done something wrong. Yes, the game's about story, but we still need to play the medium. The player needs to be engaged with progression to drive the point home. The only time in the game I felt engaged by this was when I found Sam's map of secret places in the house. And even that was just another poorly disguised key. Secondly, the main protagonist. In the Stanley parable, you are Stanley. Stanley doesn't speak. You only know what he thinks and feels by the narrator telling you. In Gone Home, you are Katie. Katie doesn't speak. You only know what she thinks and feels by finding postcards she sent home. Neither character by themselves are what you'd call rounded. I can't tell you much about Stanley, because half of what the narrator says is a lie anyway. I can't tell you much about Katie, because she is the most boring character in Gone Home. Of course that's fine, because the game is not about Katie. The game is about Sam. Katie is just giving you the method of experiencing Sam's world. Katie is the whitewashed, boring girl that played it safe against the vibrant nature of her sister. As such, in both games, you could make the argument the protagonist is not the character you're playing. Instead, it's the person who speaks and tells you the story. If that's the case, the protagonists are the narrator in Stanley Parable and Sam in Gone Home. The narrator is a smug little shit, but goddamn is he an entertaining smug shit. So entertaining they made a narrator pack for him in Dota 2. He's that good. Then there's Sam. Sam is a quintessential teenage girl. From her viewpoint, there is no way anyone else can understand her, and she just needs to live, man. Sam rubs me the wrong way. I started to have my grumps about her when she mentions in a letter to her parents that, gosh, she has a car now, and her only sister, who is only 3 years older than she is traveling around the world as we speak. I'm going to back up a moment here and talk about character building. When you are building on a character, you want to introduce bits that make your character first. When you are building on a character, you want to introduce bits that make you like a character first. I once wrote a stupid story called Patrick Rex for my college magazine, which means maybe 12 people read it. That being said, my own character, Patrick, is a little shit. While his father is dying of cancer, he can only complain that he's been ignored his entire life. In the story I choose to write, I write an asshole. I happen to think a well-grounded asshole can be played off well. That said, Sam just starts off on the wrong foot with me. Yes, this is a standard teenage tactical maneuver. You gave me this freedom, how can you tell me it's wrong? I could go on and on about this, but it'll just make me sound like an old man yelling at the local kids for playing on my damn lawn. This feels like the game set me up early to dislike Sam and try to swing it around later. If Sam's going to be my protagonist, I need to be given a reason to like her up front, and then pull the spoiled teenager bullshit. In both games you can't jump. I've come to the conclusion that jumping is prohibitive to storytelling. Developers, take note. If you want your story to be taken seriously, there will be no jumping involved. Clearly, this is why Grand Theft Auto 3 was noted for having rich characterization, but not San Andreas. I digress. The big sticker in all of this, however, is plot delivery and adherence. The Stanley Parable, despite changing what the plot even means between choices, has a very coherent structure. There are no points that are left dangling in its story. If something is brought up, it's rather immediately addressed and built upon what is being brought up before. Or in some cases, what is not brought up. The plot structure is strong and coherent. Gone Home is a bit of a mess on a literary level. It brings up points of mental disorders, the occults, and toys with them a bit before dropping them back in the idea bin. The creepiness of the house is just used for something that the sisters are teased over in school. The occult is just something that everyone in the family but the mother dabbles in. Religion is just something the mother does and tries to impose. It's a weird, tangled web of story that doesn't seem to know where it wants to go. I know, its intention is to strengthen its world building, but none of the sub-stories really get a strong feeling of closure. The dad goes back to riding again, and the parents refocus on their marriage after a slump. The mother gets her promotion. I just don't know if that's enough. I made an offhand comparison to a friend of mine, and the more I think about it, the more it holds up. It's shitty Juno. Juno, for everything it did right, did a poor job of building truly three-dimensional characters. Character archetypes are what writers lean on for their secondary characters, and it makes a good mold for world building. Tyrion Lannister, for how badass a character he is, falls to a lot of archetypes. But he works, because he is a secondary character to the world's main characters. Juno still succeeds to be an interesting story, but even its primary characters still fell to the problem of being stilted by the archetype they were based on. Personally, I think this is because Juno herself was given room to be a three-dimensional character in a two-dimensional world. In ways it aided the story, because she seemed to change and grow in a world that simply didn't. In a lot of ways, is how going through your teenage years feels. No one in Gone Home changes from their two-dimensional archetype, just the situations they're involved in. Dad never really changes from being a schlock peddler who never knows what he wants to do. Mom's arc is bland. Katie doesn't do much but be a springboard for Sam. Lonnie is a teenage punk rocker with a bit of interest in military. The game even nods to the fact that Lonnie is so heavily invested in military things, yet it goes against her anti-authoritarian feelings, but doesn't use this to alter her conduct in any meaningful way. Not getting on the bus on the last day doesn't change the character. But, let's face it, Lonnie, Mom, Dad, they didn't have to change for the story to be good. Sam is the focus, the driving point of the narrative. If we've built on any point, it's that Sam comes across as a two-dimensional tomboy teenage girl. The story gave so many chances for her to change, develop, learn beyond the archetype. Chances for the tidings of darkness, cult, or anything else to play into her life could have happened here. I understand the name of the story is the comparison. Katie has gone home, whereas Sam has left it. Sam is choosing to live her own life. But what sort of life? She ransacks the kitchen in the parents' room by the looks of it, and leaves on what is ultimately a whim. That's not development. There isn't a point in the story where she takes honest responsibility. Choosing to shift the blame onto the school, her parents, society in general, instead of developing who she is and growing. And that's the problem with the story. It's a wasted potential, the loose ends, the poor gimmicks, the attempt at world building that just falls short. And this isn't a bad game, it's just a game that fails to live up to its own potential. It reaches a goal line that falls flat. Whereas the Stanley Parable drives you ever forward and delivers a set of stories that would fit with any Vonnegut book, Gone Home is wishy-washy, mediocre. It's a B- of story games. Comparisons of personality to art forms such as punk rock just aren't enough. Littering the world with notepads is not enough. They help build a world, but they don't tell the story alone. This game needed to do more than simply go against cultural norms. Because it touched on something so important, the extra step that is missing just makes the game feel that much more flat. If this medium's going to develop, we need games that are stronger than navel-gazing. If a game will bring this about, it'll be the Stanley Parable. Years from now, I feel like this is a game that will only stand the test of time. It will be seen as a milestone along the lights of Asteroids and Super Mario Bros. I can't say the same for Gone Home. I just can't. And I really wish I did.